So we finally made it to the final double game week of the season and the penultimate game week in FPL. It's time to play those Hail Marys or consolidate your rank as we head towards the very end of the season. Hey everyone, Sam here, otherwise known as FPL Pricey, and today we're going to get you locked in ahead of game week 37, which of course is the final double game week of the season, and for me and for many others out there will be a big week for the bench boost of course as well. Now if you enjoyed today's video, I'd really appreciate it if you could leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any future content, especially ahead of next season as well. But in the meantime, let's take a look at my game week 36 performance. And overall, I really haven't got that much to complain about. I only made one move, that was Gvardiol in for the injured Van Heck. He did secure himself 6 points, probably not in the most traditional way, got the assist from the penalty of course, and outside of that, Gabriel and Petrovic both got clean sheets too. Gusto came off my bench for Fabian Schär. That was maybe a little bit jammy. I wasn't expecting Schär to play, but on the off chance that Howe was completely lying and Schär was fit, I did prefer that as a fixture, so I thought I'd give it a go. But Gusto coming off the bench for 1 point was absolutely fine. If anything, it was good news really, because at least Gusto was fit enough to get some minutes, which before the game week I wasn't really expecting. So maybe that's one less issue for me to worry about quite so much ahead of game week 37. In midfield, 4 out of 5 return. None of them went big though. It would have been nice to see one of them get a big double-digit haul, but again, not really too much to complain about there. Gordon, Palmer, Son and Foden all got a single return each. Garnacho was the disappointment, and I would have been tempted to remove him if I knew that Bruno Fernandes wasn't going to play. And of course, Bruno Fernandes, if I knew he was going to play, would probably have been my transfer in for Garnacho. But with the doubt, I wasn't sure either way. And of course, with Garnacho in the side and definitely going to be playing, he was going to be better off if Bruno was playing. Obviously, having that creator in your side is going to help with your attackers getting those chances. As soon as we knew Bruno was out of the match, I had very little expectations on Garnacho, and I kind of wish I started Pedro over Garnacho, having that information at the time, but obviously previous to locking in, we didn't have that information, so we didn't know. So annoying to get only 2 points from Garnacho, but moving into my front line, obviously the majority of the points came from Erling Haaland. 21 doubled to 42, 4 goals. He was even a little bit annoyed to get subbed when he did and was probably on for an even bigger mega haul at the time as well. And Isak, of course, 7 points. Not again in the traditional way, got the goal, got the assist, but missed the penalty. So I think most weeks I would have been more worried that he would lose his penalties to Wilson in the next game week. But Wilson's now also an injury out as well, so maybe he holds on to them, especially considering he's on 20 league goals for the season as well. So we'll want to try and bolster that as he tries to hunt down Erling Haaland, who's I think 5 goals ahead of him in the Golden Boot race now. So he's going to need those penalties if he's got even a chance. Overall, though, 97 points was enough for a green arrow. It was a very small one, and I missed out on the hauls of Jackson, for example, which really would have propelled me towards the top 100k. It is another opportunity missed, perhaps, but again, I'm not a million miles away. I think I'm 8 points outside the top 100k, so a couple of risks maybe need to be taken to secure that rank, but I don't think anything drastic needs to be done. So in the meantime, let's start taking a look at game week 37, starting off with the best captaincy pick. So this might be a slightly shorter section than usual because, of course, the number one captaincy pick for this week, yet again, will be Erling Haaland. And if anyone was in any doubt as to how prolific he is, he certainly gave us all a bit of a reminder against Wolves at home, scoring those 4 goals in limited minutes as well, because, of course, he did go off at around 70 minutes, I think it was in the end. But Fulham away, Tottenham away, both good fixtures. His underlying attacking data is phenomenal at 1.12, the best in the game. And of course, 25 goals means he is leading the Golden Boot race. And I've got a sneaky suspicion he'll want to try and secure 30 league goals before the end of the season. That might be a bit of an outside hope, but he does have 3 games to do it in. So would anyone really bet against it? Probably not me. And even though I am chasing that top 100k finish, about 8 points outside that at the moment, I think going against him just seems like one risk too many in my particular case. However, the one argument I can give you to go against Erling Haaland is if you're chasing by a bigger margin. Now, captaincy is quite an important factor in whether or not you're going to be able to catch someone in your mini leagues or catch a certain rank if you're 20 or 30 points behind at this point. And I have no doubt whatsoever that Erling Haaland is the most likely player to have a big haul in game week 37. I don't think anyone out there would really contest that point of view. However, just because he's the most likely player to do it doesn't mean he's the only player that could go big. And he also might not go big. We've seen in weeks past, he doesn't return every single week. And even though he is the most likely to do so, that's no guarantee that it will happen for him, even across 2 games in a double game week. And there are other players that I think, if you're willing to risk it, if you're chasing a big margin, maybe there's a mini league that you really care about and you're 20 or 30 points away from the person that you're behind, then there are other options that in any given game week could go big. And even though they're slightly less likely than Erling Haaland, you could roll the dice and you might get away with it. So I think, considering we're at the crunch point of the season, we're at that biting point where you have to take those gambles if you're going to catch them, I would recommend having at least a look at whether you think the likes of Palmer, Isak or Son could be tempting to you, and you think, okay, any given game week, this could work out for me, I'm willing to take a bit of a gamble on it. Now, looking at those other 3 options in isolation now for the moment, I would say my favourite of the 3 right now is Alexander Isak. Now, the reasoning for that is that, okay, Brighton have statistically been a pretty good defence, but they still do leak quite a lot of goals, and they're also missing one of their best defenders, most likely in Van Heck. And of course, the Stupinian's out as well, so they do need to rotate a little bit at the back. On top of that, Newcastle at home have been absolutely phenomenal recently. Their underlying attacking data is very, very good. And Isak's underlying data is fantastic as well. 0.93 XGI per 90. Of course, you include penalties within that, but the majority of that is it is goal threat, not assist threat. So that, of course, is going to be even more valuable for us. And then even outside of the Brighton game, Man United have been one of the poorest defences, not even just through the eye test, but also statistically across the entire season, and they're missing defenders. So that double is a really fantastic double for Newcastle, and they are fighting for the highest possible European spot that they can get to at the moment. Those 2 games are going to be massive for them. They're going to throw all their weight behind it. And I really think Isak could be a fantastic differential captain this week, especially if Wilson's injury doubts that are rumours at this point, but if they end up being true, then Isak will almost certainly be the number 1 centre forward, not playing in a 4-4-2 where Wilson is kind of the main man and Isak is playing just off of him. Isak will be that man in a 1 at the front with 2 wingers either side of him, serving him up as many chances as possible. And of course, he would keep penalties, especially if Wilson is not playing. After that, I also do really like Cole Palmer. Nottingham Forest and Brighton, I don't think it's quite as good as a double game week as the likes of Newcastle have, but Palmer himself has been inevitable this season. 31 attacking returns in only 25 starts, I believe it is now, maybe 26. The top point scorer in the game, or joint top point scorer with Saka, I believe. And he has just been formidable since he's come into the side. And Chelsea, I think in the last 5 game weeks, are the second best attack in the league, just a fraction behind Liverpool. So again, a very good option. He will be extremely highly owned, but not many people will go and put the armband on him or Isak. Now, one step down from both of them, I do like Son, although all things being equal, I think I'd probably prefer the other 2 as differential options. But if you really do fancy that Burnley match in particular, that is undoubtedly the best game of any of the double game week sides that any of them has this week. So if you want to throw your weight behind one really juicy fixture and hope that it pays off, that Burnley home tie could pay dividends. And then, of course, the Man City game is a bit of a bonus at that point. If he gets anything from that, then obviously your quid's in, you're loving life. But the Burnley game really is the carrot there. And the data's decent. He's on penalties. I think he's one step behind the other two as differentials. And I think if I was going to try and take on Erling Haaland, Isak would be the man. But do let me know in the comments how far behind you are in your mini leagues, or if you're chasing a certain rank, and whether or not you're willing to take the risk on going against Erling Haaland this week. Okay, so moving on to my transfer targets for this game week. And the first thing that I need to sort out as a priority will be Fabian Schär. Now, as it stands, it looks like he's out for the season, and there's not really much hope of him coming back in, although it is worth noting that Eddie Howe is usually fairly tight-lipped and actually often lies flat out in press conferences. So it wouldn't be the craziest thing in the world if Fabian Schär ended up being fit for game week 37, but I don't think I can take that chance. I think to take a chance on that being the case would be extremely foolish of me, and because I've got one free transfer, it does make sense to just make this move and probably bring in another Newcastle player in his place to complete the triple up. Now, the sensible move would probably be Dan Burn. Decent enough underlying attacking data, 0.15 is actually really good. And again, for his price point, he's a pretty sensible option. He'll get 90 minutes probably in both matches. Newcastle's double game week defensively probably isn't the best, but I wouldn't be massively shocked to see them keep a clean sheet against Brighton or Man United. And then again, from set pieces, Dan Burn is always going to be a threat, so I wouldn't be, again, massively shocked to see him get some sort of attacking return from a corner, from a free kick. However, I think there is one player that is really taking my eye at the moment, and he will be such a differential that in my particular scenario, I could be willing to take a gamble on Kieran Trippier. Now, he's got much better underlying attacking data than nearly any other defender in the game, especially of the ones that have a double game week this week. And yes, he's been out for a long time. Minutes will be a massive risk, but that's the part of this that I'm willing potentially to gamble on. That, yes, he's been out for a while, but he's been away in Dubai getting fit. He's back in full team training as of Wednesday, according to multiple sources, including Sky Sports. So I think that's fairly reliable. It's whether or not Eddie Howe wants to chuck him in from the start and play him in the first game in double game week 37. Now, the risk is obviously that he maybe starts one, gets benched the other, or maybe even gets benched both times and gets 20 minutes in one, 30 minutes in another, and they're sort of building him up to full match fitness ahead of game week 38 and then the Euros. But I think Trippier is such a valuable player for them, and he's been so prolific when he's been on the pitch, that I'm willing to take a gamble that Eddie Howe does put him in from the start in at least one of the two games, and maybe a sub appearance in the other. And during that time, his threat is high enough that I might get lucky. And all he needs, as we know from Trippier, is one attacking return or a clean sheet, and he's usually top of the bonus. So again, the upside is far greater for him than for a lot of the other defensive options. And look, there'll be lots of people in the comments, I'm sure, saying, look, it's way too risky. He's been out for 2 months. They'll probably nurse him back to full strength and maybe give him 20 minutes, 30 minutes. But there is a universe where they just chuck him in from the start in at least one of the two games, and he does haul. And because of that underlying attacking data, and because of the bonus points that comes with any of those attacking returns in Trippier's case, I do really like it, because again, it's so differential. No one else is going to be on him, and he is one of the best defenders in the game if we know he's starting. So again, look, it is risky, but I'm in a position where risks probably do need to be taken, and Dan Burn is going to be very highly owned in comparison to Trippier, but I think I can get more attacking threat out of Trippier and kind of roll the dice on hoping that will gain me the points on people I'm chasing in the top 100k. Again, let me know in the comments below just how silly you think that move is, but I really am flying the Trippier flag this week, and if we get any sort of word that he's going to be ready for game week 37, I am likely to go there. So unfortunately, I've only got one free transfer this week, and I think if I had two, this move would be almost locked in for me. I think it would just make a lot of sense. But whether or not it's worth it for a hit is an entirely different question. Garnacho is starting at the moment. He's getting good minutes, but Man United themselves haven't been fantastic. And of course, Garnacho also hasn't been brilliant or prolific by any means in recent game weeks. His underlying attacking data, again, it's not bad, 0.40 XGI per 90, But when you look at the alternatives, there are plenty of other assets out there with far superior data and with better fixtures as well. And one player that I'm really tempted to go with, again, as a differential because I'm chasing rank, could be Richarlison. Now, his underlying attacking data is fantastic, 0.66 XGI per 90, and 0.58 of that is goal threat. That's XG per 90. And that is really important for a midfielder because, of course, you get 2 more points for a goal than you do an assist. So if it was a bit of a mixture, you're talking with someone talking about someone who's a bit more creative, that's all well and good. And the likes of Kevin De Bruyne could be a good option this week. But I like the players who are more likely to score the goals because I'm really after those big hauls at the moment. And if Richarlison can start that Burnley game in particular, I'm not even that fussed about the Man City game. Even if he gets 20, 30 minutes in that match, that's fine. I'll take the appearance points. I maybe get lucky with an attacking return. But that Burnley game is so, so good that I think playing the out of position forward for Spurs in a pretty attacking team against one of the weakest defensive teams could be a really good upside differential that I'm willing to use to my advantage, take a bit of a risk on. And again, I think his ownership's 2.7, 2.8% at the moment. So he's a mega differential with tons of upside. And he's the sort of player that I might want to take a gamble on if a player is going to help me catch up to the players in front of me. Now, it's not just double game week 37 that I've got my eye on for Richarlison. It's also game week 38 because Sheffield United away is a fantastic game for Spurs. And again, one of, if not now, the worst defence in the league statistically. They've got nothing to play for, meanwhile Spurs do. And Richarlison, I back him to have a really good day out in game week 38. So I don't really want to get rid of him for that week either. So overall, if it was Garnacho or Richarlison, in a fair fight between them, no hits taken, with those 3 fixtures for Garnacho, Arsenal, Newcastle, Brighton, versus Burnley, Sheffield United, and then that City game is a little bit of a downer, I would still massively back Richarlison to outperform or outscore Garnacho. The question is, will he outscore him by 4 points or more? And I think, honestly, I'm pretty tempted to chase the upside there and hope that this pays off. I think 4 points is basically 1 attacking return more for Richarlison than Garnacho. And I think Richarlison is going to do really well in at least 2 out of those 3 games. So I'm willing to back that. I'm willing to take the risk on a really low ownership, but high upside explosive differential in the hope that that can be one of those things to help me catch up with the 100k rank, which is again 8 points ahead of me. So let's move on to my actual team selection for game week 37. And with those 2 moves loaded for a hit, this is what my bench boost will look like. And overall, I have to say, especially my starting 11, I'm really, really happy with. I think if you asked me several weeks ago when I wildcarded what my game week 37 ideal bench boost side looked like, the starting 11 or the triple ups I've got of those doubling teams are almost the exact triple ups that I would want. So Spurs, Son, Richarlison, Porro, those are 3 very high upside picks. Good data on all 3 of them. I would be very happy with that. The triple up on Man City is a dream. I've got 1 defender, Gvardiol. Hopefully he starts both matches, although it is possibly a little bit of a risk. But he's got attacking upside himself as well. And then Haaland and Foden pick themselves at this point. Moving across to Newcastle, Isak, Gordon and Trippier. Again, I couldn't be happier with that 3. I'd be very, very proud, especially if Trippier starts both matches, to have all 3 of them in my bench boost side. Isak's been phenomenal. I'm actually quite surprised that he's survived this long without getting injured since I wildcarded. So that's been very, very helpful. And then looking at Chelsea as well, Palmer is as close to essential as you can really get at the moment. And then the one thing that I'm missing out on that I wish I had in my side is Jackson. If I had Jackson, I'd be very close to saying that this is the perfect side with the triple Chelsea as well. But obviously I've got Gusto at the moment. That is definitely not ideal. That is an issue that I could potentially look at sorting out, but it would be for another hit. And I think that overall, I'd probably prefer to either back Gusto to get decent minutes across the double. He has had injury doubts, but he is back now. He did get minutes in game week 36. And then the second problem, of course, is whether or not Chalobah comes out of the side, considering that actually they've played really well with their current system with Chalobah in it. Will Gusto just walk straight back into the starting 11? Maybe, maybe not. But either way, he's almost certain to get 2 sub appearances at the minimum. That's 2 points from him. And looking around, there aren't too many defenders that I can get to now that I'm in teams that I'm not already tripled up on. I back to score 6 or more points across the double and can confidently say that's the case. And again, that's a worst case scenario for Gusto. He could, even in limited minutes, still get an assist, still get very, very lucky and get a goal. Or he could even start one of the 2 matches, if not both, and therefore have a much higher chance of getting an attacking return or a clean sheet as well. So overall, I think with Gusto, if I didn't have triple Chelsea, then I'd definitely be buying Jackson. But because I've got triple Chelsea and because Gusto is likely to get some minutes, I'm not sure it's worth a hit to get rid of him, considering there are other upside moves that I'd prefer to chase at this point. Again, though, there are plenty of scenarios where Gusto's easier for you to get rid of, and therefore I would definitely recommend doing so. But again, I'm tripled up on all of the teams I want to be tripled up on in this scenario. Are there any alternatives outside of the ones I've already got that I can get to from Gusto that I'd be confident outscore him by 4 points? I don't know. Probably not. Anyway, moving forward, I think looking at the bench boost in isolation, so the 4 players on my bench, I don't think there's too many questions about them being the 4 players that actually would be on my bench most weeks if I wasn't bench boosting this game week. But Onana, okay, Man United, very bad defensively, but hoping for a few save points. If I can get 4, 5, 6 points out of him from the double game week, I'll be pretty happy with that. Pedro, again, I'm really hoping we get lucky, get a penalty out of him. His underlying data has been good. So again, as a differential, I really like it. And again, I'm not sure if it's worth a hit, especially 2 hits, to remove him to get to Jackson. And then obviously I'd have to remove Gusto to do that as well. So that'd be a -8 to do that. I don't think that's worth it. Pedro is not the ideal striker to have in that 3rd spot, but he's on penalties, his data's decent, and he is mega differential. So I'm happy enough to hold on to him as it stands. And outside of Jackson, there aren't too many other strikers I'd prefer to him anyway at this point. Now, Gusto I've already discussed, so let's move across to the only single game week player, and that is Gabriel. Now, I think a lot of us will be having at least one Arsenal defender in our sides at the moment, especially if you're bench boosting. It will be a question whether or not to go all guns blazing, remove Gabriel or White or Saliba, whichever defender you've got from Arsenal, and go for as many double game weekers as you can, maybe even lock out a full 15 of double game weekers. I don't think that's wise, especially for a hit, considering how good Arsenal have been defensively. I really wouldn't be shocked at all if they kept a clean sheet against Man United. So straight away, you're looking for a defender that scores 10 or more points across the double to beat Gabriel or White or Saliba for a hit. So that's already pretty difficult. You might get lucky by selling them, and then again, maybe they only get 2 points they concede against United. But one, how many players, how many defenders are there out there that you could be very confident to score 6 or more points and therefore outweigh the hit to get rid of a defender, to get rid of Gabriel, for instance? And then also, you need to think about game week 38 as well, because it's not just about game week 37 in isolation. It's also about how good he will be as an option, or how good any Arsenal defender will be as an option in game week 38, considering a lot of managers probably will take the risk and sell them. You could just still have them in your side. And I think overall, you're pretty likely to be up on the deal by just holding on to them and not or wasting a transfer on selling an Arsenal asset, especially when you're going to want them next week against Everton at home on the final day anyway. So in my side, I'm very, very happy to hold on to Gabriel. I think even if I had double Arsenal defence at this point, I'd probably hold on to both of them. And I understand the temptation to look elsewhere. And maybe if you're chasing, you could chase the upside and try and find a defensive pick that you do back to explode in game week 37. But I think, honestly, Arsenal defenders are absolutely fine to hold on to this week, and I'm in no rush to get rid of them, especially when we look ahead to game week 38 as well. So I think that just about wraps up my game week 37 bench boost side. So let me know in the comments below what you think of the side, but also what your dilemmas are ahead of game week 37, whether you're on a bench boost, whether you're on a free hit, even if you're triple captaining or just running through the game week. Let me know what your dilemmas are, and I'll try and help you out ahead of the deadline. In the meantime, I'd really appreciate it if you could leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next week as we start preparing for the final game week of the season, game week 38.